The disappearance of Brandon Lawson, the call from the dark. In the pre-dawn hours of August 8, 2013, a young Texas father pulled his truck to the side of a lonely stretch of highway, stepped out into the darkness, and made a phone call that has never been fully explained. If you're here because someone in the comments of a true crime forum told you this was a case you absolutely needed to know about, they were right. Brandon Lawson's disappearance is one of those cases that gets passed around in communities like Reddit's unsolved mysteries, not because it's flashy or because it involves famous people or dramatic courtroom twists. It gets passed around because it is genuinely, profoundly unresolved in the most fundamental way. There is a recorded voice. There is a defined location. There is a window of time so short it seems impossible that a person could simply cease to exist within it. And yet, over 11 years later, that is exactly what appears to have happened. We are going to look at why this case has endured in the public consciousness long after most missing person cases fade from attention. And we are going to talk about why cases like Brandon's matter, not just as mysteries to be solved, but as reminders that behind every open file in a missing persons database, there is a family still living with an unanswered question every single day. The town of Bronte, which sits just off Highway 277 and is relevant to this story, is similarly small, a community of fewer than 1,000 residents, surrounded by miles of mesquite brush, cedar, open pasture, and ranch land that stretches in every direction without much to interrupt it. He was from San Angelo, Texas, and by all publicly documented accounts, he was a young father. Details about his personal life come primarily from family statements made to local news outlets and from community discussions that his family participated in over the years. The family has been public about their desire to find Brandon and has advocated consistently for continued attention to the case. Out of respect for family members who are still living and who have not waived their privacy, we will limit personal details to what has been reported in verified news sources. The truck came to a stop on the shoulder of Highway 277 north of Bronte, in a stretch of road that is, by any reasonable description, remote. Kyle, according to accounts that have been reported publicly and discussed by the family in media appearances, set out to bring Brandon fuel so the truck could be driven again. This was not, on its face, an unusual situation. A vehicle running out of gas on a rural highway, a family member driving out with a gas can. This is the kind of mundane problem that happens to people all the time. Highway 277 north of Bronte runs through terrain that at night would have been very dark. If you're standing on the shoulder of that road at 2 or 3 in the morning, what you see is essentially nothing in every direction except the occasional headlights of passing vehicles. The land falls away from the road on both sides, down into draws and washes, up into low rises covered in cedar and mesquite brush. A person moving off the road and into that landscape would, within a very short distance, lose sight of the highway entirely. And it has generated more theories, more interpretations, and more questions than perhaps any other single piece of evidence in the case. A person who voluntarily walks away from a situation, who decides to leave, for whatever reason, might reasonably be expected to take their phone with them. A phone is a lifeline. In a dark, remote area with limited cell coverage, it is the one tool that connects you to help, to family, to the possibility of being found. And then, as the hours passed and Brandon did not appear, the scope of the search began to expand. People who had never met Brandon Lawson drove out to Coke County to walk the ranch land around Highway 277 because a young father was missing and because the community of people who pay attention to such things understood, instinctively, that every set of eyes helps. There is a narrow window of time, we are talking about minutes, not hours, between the 911 call and the arrival of Kyle Lawson and law enforcement at the truck. And there is a body of land that, while remote and challenging, has been physically searched by multiple teams using both ground and aerial methods. It is a young man, a dark road, a phone call, and then nothing. And the nothing is what makes it impossible to set down.